English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now. Hey, English learners. Welcome back to your podcast, the English Daily Podcast.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here today.
Today's episode is all about something really important for anyone working in marketing. We're going to talk about the zero-click search era and how to explain 2026 SEO trends to your marketing team.
That's right, and we're going to make it really practical for you, especially if you're in a multilingual environment or working with English-speaking clients.
So whether you're a beginner or already speaking well, you'll find something useful here. We'll break down all those confusing terms like SGE and AI-generated summaries in a way that makes sense.
Let's dive right in.
So, Jack, let's start with the basics. What exactly is zero-click search? I've been hearing this term everywhere lately.
Great question. Zero-click search basically means when someone searches for something on Google or another search engine, they get their answer right there on the search results page without having to click on any link. You know those little boxes at the top of Google with quick answers? That's what we're talking about.
Oh, I see. So it's like when you type, "How many cups in a liter?" and Google just shows you the answer instead of sending you to a website.
Exactly. You've got it. And here's what's really interesting. Studies show that more than half of all searches now end without the user clicking through to any website. That's a huge change from just a few years ago.
That's a lot. But why is this happening now? What's changed?
Well, it's mainly because of AI. Google and other search engines have gotten much smarter at understanding what people actually want when they search. They started showing these quick answers, and now with something called SGE, that's Search Generative Experience, the answers are even more comprehensive.
SGE. I've heard that term, but I'm not totally sure what it means. Can you break it down for us?
Of course. SGE stands for Search Generative Experience. It's basically Google's AI-powered way of answering search queries. Instead of just showing you a list of links, SGE generates a complete answer right there at the top of the search results. It uses artificial intelligence to pull information from multiple sources and synthesize it into one coherent response.
So it's like having a conversation with a really smart assistant who can instantly summarize all the information on the internet?
That's a great way to think about it. And the really important thing for marketers to understand is that this changes everything about how people find information online. If they can get their answer without clicking, what does that mean for websites? What does it mean for content creators?
That's a really good point. I remember back when I first started learning about digital marketing, everyone was all about driving traffic to your website. But now it sounds like the game has completely changed.
It really has. And you know what's fascinating? This isn't some distant future thing. It's happening right now in 2026. The zero-click era is already here, and marketing teams need to adapt or risk becoming invisible.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this works in practice?
Sure. Let's say you run a marketing team and you're trying to figure out how to write content that ranks well. In the old days, you might have written a blog post titled Top 10 Tips for Email Marketing. But now, when someone searches for email marketing tips, Google might show an AI-generated summary that pulls tips from dozens of different articles, and your specific blog post might never get seen at all.
That's kind of scary, honestly. So what should marketing teams actually do about it?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this episode. The key is understanding the new rules of the game. It's not just about ranking anymore. It's about being part of the answer that AI generates, and that requires a completely different approach to content.
Let's dig deeper into this AI summary thing. How exactly does Google decide what to put in those AI-generated boxes? I mean, what determines which information gets pulled?
That's a really important question, and honestly, it's a bit complex. Google's AI looks at lots of different factors. It considers the quality of your content, how well it matches the search intent, how authoritative your website is, and whether your information is current and accurate. But here's the thing. It's not just about having good content anymore. You need content that's structured in a way that AI can easily understand and extract information from.
Structured in a way AI can understand? What does that mean exactly?
Great question. It means things like using clear headings, having well-organized bullet points, answering questions directly, and providing information in formats that are easy for AI to parse. Things like FAQs, structured data, and concise answers to specific questions. These all help AI understand and potentially feature your content.
So it's almost like you need to write for both humans and machines at the same time?
Exactly. You've hit on something really important. That's exactly what modern SEO is about. You can't just write for search engines with keyword stuffing like people used to do years ago. That actually hurts you now. But you also can't ignore the technical side entirely. There's this whole new skill of understanding how AI systems process and summarize content.
Do you remember when you first noticed these AI summaries becoming common? What was that like for you?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when Google first started showing those featured snippets years ago. They used to call them position zero. That was like the first step towards zero-click. But honestly, the jump to full AI-generated summaries in the last couple of years has been dramatic. It went from a quick paragraph to this comprehensive AI overview that can answer complex questions in detail.
I bet that was quite a shift for anyone working in marketing.
It was. I remember talking to a friend who runs an SEO agency, and she told me her clients were panicking. They were seeing their traffic drop and didn't understand why. It took a while to explain that the problem wasn't their content quality, it was that the whole search landscape had changed. The answer box was eating their clicks.
That must have been stressful for everyone involved. So, what advice would you give to someone whose marketing team is dealing with this right now?
First, don't panic. This is actually an opportunity, not just a threat. The second thing is to understand that the goal has shifted. Instead of just trying to get people to your website, you need to focus on building brand awareness and authority. Even if someone doesn't click through, if they see your brand mentioned positively in those AI summaries, that's still valuable.
That's interesting. So, the strategy changes completely?
It does. You're no longer just competing for clicks, you're competing for visibility and credibility. And that means things like getting mentioned in other authoritative sources, building partnerships, and creating content that AI systems recognize as high quality and trustworthy. It's a different game, but it's still a game you can win.
Now, here's something I've been thinking about. How do you actually explain all these technical changes to a marketing team that might not be familiar with SEO jargon? That seems like a whole other challenge.
Oh, that is such a good point. And honestly, that's one of the main reasons we wanted to do this episode. You can understand all this yourself, but the real skill is being able to communicate it to others, whether it's your boss, your clients, or your team members who aren't as tech-savvy.
Right, because everyone uses different terminology, right? What might be called one thing in one industry might have a completely different meaning in marketing.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of confusion comes from. When you're talking about zero-click search, for example, some people in traditional marketing might not even know what that term means. You have to meet them where they are and explain things in language they can understand.
So, how do you actually do that? What's your approach when you need to explain AI overview marketing terms to someone who isn't familiar with them?
Well, I like to start with the impact. Don't dive into the technical details first. Explain what this means for the business, like, hey, we're seeing changes in how people find us online, and here's what that means for our strategy. That gets people's attention because it's about results, not jargon.
That's smart. People care about outcomes, not technical specifications.
Exactly. Then, once they're interested, you can gradually introduce the terminology. You might say something like, this is related to what people call zero-click search, which basically means, and you bridge from the familiar to the new concept.
Can you think of a time when you had to do this in real life? maybe a story about explaining these concepts to a marketing team?
Oh, I have a great example. A few months ago, I was working with a small marketing team for a company that sells handmade jewelry. The marketing manager was very traditional. She was all about print ads and catalog distributions. When I tried to explain SEO and how search works, her eyes just glazed over. She couldn't have cared less about the technical details.
That's so relatable. I've seen that happen too.
Right? So I changed my approach. Instead of talking about algorithms and ranking factors, I asked her a simple question. Where do your customers go when they want to buy jewelry online? And she immediately said Google, of course. Then I said, great, so we need to make sure they find you when they search. That connected. Suddenly she got it.
Oh, I love that. You found the common ground.
And then when we started talking about zero-click search specifically, I explained it in terms she could feel. You know how sometimes you search for something and you get the answer right there without clicking on anything? Well, that's happening more and more, and we need to make sure our business shows up in those answers. She completely understood after that.
That's such a practical example. Do you have any other tips for people who need to explain these concepts?
Yes, use analogies and comparisons to everyday situations. Most people understand things like online shopping, social media, and using voice assistants like Siri or Alexa. You can relate AI search to those experiences. Another tip, always connect the concept back to their specific role or industry. Generic explanations rarely stick.
That's really helpful advice. And I think it's also important to remember that not everyone needs to become an SEO expert. Some people just need to understand enough to make good decisions.
Absolutely. Your job isn't to turn everyone into a technical specialist. Your job is to help them understand enough to support the strategy and make informed decisions. That's a much more achievable goal.
Let's talk about the specific terminology that marketing teams need to know for 2026. What are the most important terms to understand?
There are several key terms that are absolutely essential now. Let's start with something called search intent. Have you heard that term?
I think I have, but could you explain it for our listeners?
Of course. Search intent basically means why someone is searching for something. Are they looking to buy something? Are they trying to learn something? Are they looking for a specific website? Understanding the intent behind a search query helps you create content that actually matches what people want. And that's super important now because AI systems are really good at judging whether your content matches intent.
That makes sense. What's another important term?
Another crucial one is EEAT, that's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's a framework that Google uses to evaluate content quality. Basically, they want to see that the person or organization creating content actually knows what they're talking about and can be trusted. This is especially important for topics like health, finance, and any YMYL topic, that's your money or your life, areas that could affect someone's financial well-being or health.
Wow, there's so much to consider. What about AI-specific terms? I keep hearing about things like generative AI and large language models. How do those fit into SEO?
Great question. Generative AI refers to AI systems that can create new content, like write text, create images, or even produce video. Large language models, or LLMs, are the underlying technology that powers things like ChatGPT and Google's AI overviews. For SEO purposes, understanding these helps you realize that AI systems are reading and evaluating your content. It's not just human readers anymore.
That's a bit daunting, honestly. It feels like there's so much to learn.
Don't worry, you don't need to become a tech expert. What you need is to understand the core concepts well enough to make strategic decisions. Think of it like driving a car. You don't need to understand exactly how the engine works to drive safely, but you do need to understand the basic rules of the road.
I love that analogy. What other terms should we know?
Let's talk about featured snippets and people also ask boxes. These are those special result formats you see on Google, the quick answer boxes and the questions that expand. These are actually part of what's driving the zero-click phenomenon because they answer questions without requiring a click. Understanding how to optimize for these is a key skill now.
Is there a term for optimizing for AI-generated results? That seems like it would be important.
You've hit on something really current. The term that's emerging is GEO. That's Generative Engine Optimization. It's essentially the practice of optimizing your content so that AI systems are more likely to feature it in their generated responses. It's like SEO's cousin, but for AI instead of traditional search engines.
Geo. I'm going to remember that one, and I think our listeners should too, because that's probably going to become a huge buzzword in the coming years.
Definitely. The field is evolving so quickly. What was cutting edge 6 months ago might already be outdated. The key is to stay curious and keep learning. That's really the only sustainable strategy.
Okay, so now let's get really practical. What are the actual strategies marketing teams should be using in 2026 to succeed in this zero-click era?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let me think through some of the most important strategies. First and foremost, focus on brand building. Since fewer people are clicking through to individual websites, your brand awareness becomes even more critical. When people see your brand name repeatedly in AI-generated answers, that's still building trust and recognition.
What do you mean by brand building specifically? Is it different from what marketing teams were doing before?
It shares some similarities, but it's intensified. Think about things like being visible in industry publications, getting mentioned and linked to by authoritative sources, building a strong social media presence, and creating content that demonstrates your expertise. All of these help AI systems recognize you as an authority. Also, things like consistent branding, clear value propositions, and memorable messaging become even more important when you have fewer touch points with potential customers.
That makes sense. What about content strategy? Has that changed too?
Absolutely. The content strategy has to evolve. You need to create content that answers specific questions comprehensively. Think about the questions your customers are actually asking, not just keywords, but actual questions, and create content that thoroughly answers those questions. And make sure your content is structured in a way that's easy for AI to understand and extract from.
Can you give us a specific example of what that looks like in practice?
Sure. Let's say you run a marketing agency and you want to attract small business owners. Instead of just writing a blog post titled Marketing Services, you might create content that answers specific questions like how much should a small business spend on marketing, or what marketing strategies work best for local businesses, or how to create a marketing budget for a new business. These specific, intent-driven content pieces have a better chance of being featured in AI overviews.
That's really helpful. What about social media? Does that play into this new SEO world?
Absolutely. Social media presence is more important than ever. When AI systems are generating responses, they don't just look at websites, they can pull information from social media too. Having active, authoritative profiles on platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, and even Instagram can help increase your visibility in AI-generated answers. Plus, social media gives you a direct relationship with your audience that doesn't depend on search algorithms at all.
I've also heard a lot about video content recently. Does that fit into this strategy?
Video is huge. YouTube is actually the second largest search engine in the world, and AI systems are getting better at understanding video content. Creating video content, whether it's tutorials, behind-the-scenes looks, educational content, or even short-form video, gives you another avenue for visibility. And video tends to build more personal connections with audiences, which is valuable in its own right.
This feels overwhelming for a small marketing team. How do you prioritize all of this?
That's such an important point, and I don't want to overwhelm anyone. Here's my advice. Start with what you can sustain. Pick one or two strategies and do them consistently rather than trying to do everything half-heartedly. Also, focus on understanding your audience deeply. What questions do they have? Where do they spend time online? What kind of content do they prefer? Once you understand that, the tactical decisions become much easier.
I think that's really wise advice. Start small, be consistent, and build from there.
Exactly. And remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Even small improvements in how you show up online can make a big difference over time.
Now, let's look ahead. What should marketing teams be thinking about to future-proof their strategies? What trends are we likely to see in the coming years?
That's a really forward-thinking question. First, I think we're going to see AI becoming even more integrated into search. The line between traditional search and AI assistance is going to blur more. People will increasingly interact with AI directly for recommendations and answers rather than going through search engines at all.
So, search engines as we know them might eventually disappear?
That's a bit dramatic, but there's truth to it. The user experience is shifting toward conversational AI interactions. Think about how people already use voice assistants, chatbots, and AI tools. That behavior is going to grow. Marketing teams need to think beyond traditional search optimization and consider how to be visible in these new AI-driven conversation contexts.
That's fascinating. What other changes do you anticipate?
I think we're also going to see more emphasis on first-party data and direct relationships with customers. With privacy regulations increasing and third-party cookies being phased out, the ability to build direct relationships through email lists, customer accounts, and owned media channels becomes crucial. This isn't just about SEO anymore, it's about building a sustainable marketing ecosystem that doesn't depend entirely on platforms you don't control.
That makes sense. What about the role of content creators? How is that changing?
Oh, the content creator role is evolving dramatically. We're already seeing AI tools that can help with content creation, but human creativity, insight, and authenticity are becoming more valuable, not less. The human element, the unique perspective, the genuine experience, the personal connection, that's what stands out in a world flooded with AI-generated content. I think we'll see more emphasis on thought leadership and personal branding as differentiators.
Do you think there's still a place for traditional SEO tactics in all of this?
That's a great question. Traditional SEO tactics still matter, but they're not sufficient on their own anymore. The fundamentals, having a fast mobile-friendly website, using proper headings and structure, having quality backlinks, these still contribute to credibility and visibility, but the focus has expanded. It's now about holistic digital presence optimization, which includes SEO, content marketing, social media, brand building, and AI readiness.
So it's not about choosing one thing over another, but integrating everything together.
Exactly. And that integration is what makes modern marketing both challenging and exciting. There's never been more to learn, but there's also never been more opportunity for those who adapt.
Now it's time for our vocabulary breakdown. Let's go through some of the key phrases we discussed today. Jack, let's start with zero-click search.
Sure. Zero-click search refers to search queries where the user gets their answer directly on the search results page without clicking on any link. An example would be searching for population of Japan and seeing the number right at the top of the results. Alternative ways to say this include no-click search or search without clicking. A common mistake is thinking this only affects informational searches, but it also affects commercial and transactional searches too.
Great! Next term, SGE, or Search Generative Experience.
SGE stands for Search Generative Experience. It's Google's AI-powered system that generates comprehensive answers to search queries directly in the search results. For example, if you search for how to start a garden, SGE might generate a complete guide with multiple sections rather than just listing links. Alternative terms include AI overview or generative search. A common mistake is confusing SGE with ChatGPT or other standalone AI tools. SGE is specifically integrated into Google Search.
Let's talk about search intent.
Search intent is the reason behind someone's search query, what they're actually trying to accomplish. There are generally 4 types: informational, wanting to learn something; navigational, trying to find a specific site; transactional, wanting to buy something; and commercial, researching before buying. An example would be someone searching best running shoes likely has commercial intent. They're researching with the intention to purchase eventually. Alternative terms include user intent or query intent. A common mistake is focusing only on keywords without considering why someone is searching.
Excellent. What about EEEAT?
EEEAT stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's Google's framework for evaluating content quality. Experience refers to first-hand experience with the topic, expertise having deep knowledge, authoritativeness being recognized as a go-to source, and trustworthiness meaning being reliable and honest. For example, a medical website with content written by doctors would have higher EEEAT than anonymous articles. Alternative terms include just EAT without the E experience component, which was added more recently. A common mistake is thinking EEEAT is a direct ranking factor. It's more of a quality evaluation framework.
Let's add featured snippet.
Featured snippet is a highlighted box at the top of Google search results that provides a direct answer to the search query. It's also sometimes called position 0 because it appears above the first regular result. An example would be searching for what is photosynthesis and seeing a definition box at the top. Alternative terms include answer box or quick answer. A common mistake is thinking you can directly optimize for featured snippets. Google chooses them algorithmically based on what provides the best answer.
Great. Let's do one more important term, Generative Engine Optimization, or GEO.
GEO, or Generative Engine Optimization, is the practice of optimizing content to be featured in AI-generated responses. It's an emerging field that combines traditional SEO with techniques specific to AI systems. An example would be structuring content in ways that AI can easily understand and extract, using clear Q&A formats, and providing comprehensive answers to specific questions. Alternative terms aren't well established yet since it's such a new concept. You might see AI optimization used informally. A common mistake is treating GEO as completely separate from traditional SEO. They actually complement each other.
Those are some really important terms. Let's add a few more for our listeners. How about people also ask?
People also ask is a Google feature that shows related questions to your search query with expandable answers. It's one of those elements contributing to zero-click behavior. For example, if you search how to make coffee, you might see questions like how do you make coffee on a stove or what's the best coffee to water ratio with expandable answers. Alternative terms include PAA, abbreviation, or related questions. A common mistake is ignoring these as SEO opportunities. The questions in PAA boxes can actually guide your content strategy.
What about backlink?
Backlink is a link from one website to another. They're important because search engines view backlinks as votes of confidence. If other reputable sites link to your content, it suggests your content is valuable and trustworthy. For example, if a popular industry blog links to your company's website, that's a backlink. Alternative terms include inbound link or incoming link. A common mistake is focusing only on quantity of backlinks rather than quality. A few links from authoritative, relevant sites are worth more than many links from low-quality sources.
And one more term, algorithm.
An algorithm is a complex set of rules and calculations that search engines use to determine how to rank websites in search results. It's essentially the brain behind search, the system that decides which content to show and in what order. For example, Google's algorithm considers hundreds of different factors when ranking websites. Alternative terms include ranking algorithm or just the algorithm in casual conversation. A common mistake is obsessing over every algorithmic detail. Algorithms change constantly, and the best strategy is usually to focus on providing value to users rather than gaming the system.
Now it's time for our reflection questions. These are for you to think about after the episode. Jack, do you want to start with the first one?
Absolutely. Question 1. Think about your own online search habits. How often do you find what you need without clicking on a website? Has this episode changed how you think about search?
Question 2. If you work with a marketing team, how would you explain zero-click search to a colleague who isn't familiar with the term? What analogy or example would you use?
Question 3. Consider your own industry or business. What are some questions your customers or audience might ask that could be answered through AI-generated summaries? How could you optimize for those?
Question 4. Among all the terms we discussed today, SGE, EEAT, search intent, geo, which one was new to you and how do you plan to learn more about it?
Question 5. Think about your own content strategy. Are you creating content that answers specific questions comprehensively, or is it more general? What changes might you make after listening to this episode?
Question 6. How important do you think brand building will become in the zero-click era? Do you agree with Jack's perspective that brand awareness is crucial even without clicks?
Question 7. What challenges do you think you'll face when explaining these SEO concepts to others in your organization? What's your strategy for overcoming those challenges?
Question 8. Looking ahead, which trend discussed in this episode do you think will have the biggest impact on marketing in the next few years? Why?
Question 9. If you were to start implementing one new strategy from this episode, which would it be and why? Think about what's most relevant to your specific situation.
Question 10. How confident do you feel now about explaining 2026 SEO trends like zero-click search and AI overviews to others? What's one thing you learned that you want to share with someone? Well, that's all for today's episode, everyone.
We covered so much today, from understanding what zero-click search means to exploring how AI summaries work to practical strategies for marketing teams in 2026.
We learned about important terminology like SGE, EEAT, search intent, and even this new concept of geo, generative engine optimization.
And most importantly, we talked about how to communicate these concepts to others in a way that makes sense, using everyday language and relatable examples.
Remember, the zero-click era isn't something to fear. It's a new landscape to navigate, and like any new landscape, it comes with its own opportunities for those who take the time to understand it.
That's right, and we hope this episode helped demystify some of those confusing terms and gave you practical ideas you can use right away.
If you found this episode helpful, please share it with anyone who might benefit from understanding 2026 SEO trends. And don't forget to subscribe to the English Daily Podcast so you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. We appreciate you spending your time with us, and we hope you feel more confident navigating the world of zero-click search and AI marketing.
That's all for now. Keep practicing your English, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye! Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.